everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Last time we read chapter 4 of Les Mis. Today we will be reading chapter 5. Monseigneur Bienvenu made his cassocks last too long. The private life of Monseigneur Myriel was filled with the same thoughts as his public life. The voluntary poverty in which the Bishop of Digne lived would have been a solemn and charming sight for anyone who could have viewed it close at hand. Like all old men, and like the majority of thinkers, he slept little. This brief slumber was profound. In the morning, he meditated for an hour, and then he said his Mass, either at the cathedral or in his own house. His Mass said he broke his fast on rye bread dipped in the milk of his own cows. Then he set to work. The bishop is a very busy man. He must every day receive the secretary of the bishopric, who is generally a canon, and nearly every day his vicars general. He has congregations to reprove, privileges to grant, a whole ecclesiastical library to examine, paper books, diocesan catechisms, books of hours, etc., charges to write, sermons to authorize, cures and mayors to reconcile, a clerical correspondence, an administrative correspondence, on one side the state, on the other the Holy See, and 1,000 matters of business. What time was left him after these 1,000 details of business and his offices and his breviaries, he bestowed first on the necessitous and the sick and the afflicted. The time which was left to him from the afflicted, the sick, and the necessitous he devoted to work. Sometimes he dug in his garden. Again, he read or wrote. He had but one word for both these kinds of toil. He called them gardening. "The mind is a garden," he said. Towards midday, when the weather was fine, he went forth and took a stroll in the countryside or in the town, often entering lowly dwellings. He was seen walking alone, buried in his own thoughts, his eyes cast down, supporting himself on his long cane, clad in his wadded purple garment of silk, which was very warm, wearing purple stockings inside his coarse shoes, and surmounted by a flat hat which allowed 3 golden tassels of large bullion to droop from its 3 points. It was a perfect festival wherever he appeared. One would have said that his presence had something warming and luminous about it. The children and the old people came out to the doorstep for the bishop, as for the sun. He bestowed his blessings, and they blessed him. They pointed out his house to anyone who was in need of anything. Here and there he halted, accosted the little boys and girls, and smiled upon the mothers. He visited the poor so long as he had any money, and when he no longer had any, he visited the rich. As he made his cassocks last a long while, and did not wish to have it noticed, he never went out in the town without his wadded purple cloak. This inconvenienced him somewhat in summer. On his return, he dined. The dinner resembled his breakfast. At 8:30 in the evening, he supped with his sister, Madame Magloire standing behind them, serving them at table. Nothing could be more frugal than this repast. If, however, the bishop had one of his cures to supper, Madame Magloire took advantage of the opportunity to serve Monseigneur some most excellent fish from the lake, or with some fine game from the mountains. Every cure furnished the pretext for a good meal. The bishop did not interfere. With that exception, his ordinary diet consisted of only of vegetables boiled in water, and oil soup. Thus it was said in the town When the bishop does not indulge in the cheer of a curé, he indulges in the cheer of a Trappist. After supper, he conversed for half an hour with Mademoiselle Baptistine and Madame Magloire. Then he retired to his own room and set to writing, sometimes on loose sheets, and again on the margin of some folio. He was a man of letters, and rather learned. He left behind him 5 or 6 very curious manuscripts, among others a dissertation on this verse in Genesis. In the beginning, the spirits of the God floated upon the waters. With this verse, he compares 3 texts. The Arabic verse, which says, "The winds of God blew." Flavius Josephus, who says, "A wind from above was prescripted upon the earth." And finally, the Chaldaic paraphrase of Onkelos, which renders, "A wind coming from God blew upon the face of the waters." In another dissertation, he examines the theological works of Hugo, Bishop of the Ptolemies, great-granduncle to the writer of this book. He establishes the fact that to this bishop must be attributed the divers little works published during the last century under the pseudonym Barleycourt. Sometimes, in the midst of his reading, no matter what the book might be which he had in his hand, he would suddenly fall into a profound meditation, whence he only emerged to write a few lines on the page of the volume itself. These lines have often no connection whatever with the book which contains them. We now have under our eyes a note written by him on the margins of the Corio entitled, "Correspondence of Lord Germain with Generals Clinton, Cornwallis, and the Admirals of the American Station, Versailles, Poincot, bookseller, and Paris, Pissot, bookseller, Quais de Argentinas." Here is the note. "Oh, you who are, Ecclesiastes calls you the all-powerful. The Maccabees call you the Creator. The Epistle to the Ephesians calls you liberty. Baruch calls you immensity. The Psalms call you wisdom and truth. John calls you light. The books of Kings call you Lord. Exodus calls you providence. Leviticus calls you sanctity. Esdras, justice. The creation calls you God. Man calls you Father. But Solomon calls you compassion, and that is the most beautiful of all of your names." Toward 9 o'clock in the evening, the 2 women retired and betook themselves to their chambers on the first floor, leaving him alone until morning on the ground floor. It is necessary that we should, in this place, give an exact idea of the dwelling of the Bishop of Danube. That brings us to the end of Chapter 5. And now I'd like to start a little discussion because I know this was a small video. First, I'd like to say thank you so much to everyone who has been sticking around so far. Please be patient. We are going to be getting to the meat of the story very soon. I know the build-up with these classics can take what feels like a long time, but I think that's something that's been lost in different aspects of storytelling in today's modern culture. Everybody is in too much of a hurry to get to the point that they don't take the time to actually just build the character. And I don't really see the point in a story if you're not going to have a good character. To me, the character makes the story. It's not the story that makes the character. So just bear with me. We're gonna get there with Les Mis. Last chapter, chapter 4, we were introduced to one of the darker themes that I have not mentioned will be discussed, but I have talked about the darker themes. The guillotine really runs home the dark side of this story, and the fact that they threw it in so early, I think it was done on purpose. It just really shows you your line of justice that was in France at the time, like off with their heads was a legitimate thing. Then they cut off the heads of their own kings and queens during different revolutions. The guillotine was a legitimate threat. So I think that's something that was really striking that was in this novel. It's not a historical romance fluff and whatever. This is blood and guts, just like anything else would be in modern day society. They just fluff it up a lot of the time. Thank you so much to everyone who's been listening with me so far, and I just want to say, hang in there. I'm learning and growing and figuring out this platform, and I really am excited to get into these different stories and discuss different characters that I've always admired. Maybe not for how good or bad of a person they are, but for how well they have been developed within the stories they exist within. So please just stick around and give me a like and a follow. Come back again for my next. I'm just really excited to see where this journey will take me. So I guess with that, that's the Acolyte, signing off.